Well, welcome again. Wherever you are, whatever's happening in your life, morning, noon, night, I don't know, but I'm glad you're with me in God Talk today. I'm Pastor Dan Smith. If this is new to you, we're a show regularly every week on LLBN. And our deal is about the character of God. We're not covering all possible subjects. I helped do the show with GPS with John Pauline and others for a long time. I had a series on Flame of Truth. But they're giving me this show, this part of my life, to just do this one thing. Let's talk about God. Over time, we will poke into all facets of this. But let's talk about righteousness today a little bit. I don't know, especially as I began to move towards retirement. I've just recently retired, moving into other LBN and Quiet Hour and evangelism around the world. But as I finished 45 years of pastoring, I began to just kind of review mistakes I've made. When I left last years ago, they made a video of bloopers that I had made, just stupid things that I had done. It's like that poor guy in what they call the agony of defeat. When they had all these losers, they had a little Wide World of Sports show. And here this one guy would be the downhill ski jumper. And he got out of the track and somehow went crashing and over the house and just had a terrible time. And they showed it every week for how many years? The poor guy had to crash again, agony of defeat. And I have this little blooper tape in my own head. David says in Psalm 51, my sins are ever before me. Do you have that too? Just wow. I used to wear a hairpiece, and I remember the time when I was doing a funeral at the Riverside Cemetery, and the wind was blowing. The people were just beginning to show up, choir was coming, and the wind blew my hairpiece up. Quickly pat it back down, and try to be under control. I said, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. The wedding where I got the names wrong and the vows, and the wife is saying what his right name was. Terribly embarrassing. The ordination for an elder, young man. He's now a pastor with me. I got the name wrong. Had to fix it later. Bad jokes I've told in front of church. The girl that I thought was going to do a nice, simple little drama about spiritual gifts, ballet dancing versus being a track star. And all of a sudden, she's leaping, doing ballet steps all over the church. I said, I'm going to be fired. I'm not supposed to have ballet dancing in church. Oh, how can that happen? At time we had prayer for a man in church, and then the man who was doing the praying began to speak in tongues. Thought I was going to get fired for that. A time water skiing years and years ago, as a young person in Thailand, and I somehow went and sprayed a little old lady and just made a big spray and got her wet. I said, why did I do that? Stupid. Sorry. Anyway, what do you do with your bloopers in your life? I listened to a sermon by Bill Hybels where he said we need a righteousness revolution. He was in New York, I think, in a coffee shop writing it. He said, this is not a good city lots of the time, and many places of it years ago. New York needs a righteousness revolution where people do things right. They don't hurt each other, don't hurt people. He said, what would happen if everyone in our government did everything right? And there was no politics and no sleaze and no paying anybody off and no more Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky back in that day when he wrote that. You know what we have today, some of our problems in government. No more scandals. If all we had were people who did what was right and didn't care about the politics of it, only what was right, that would make America better. Don't care about party or winning another term. Righteous. Wouldn't that be great? I was in Africa helping our school at Seleucia University. Kids were starving. We didn't have a farm. We didn't have a cafeteria. Faculty struggling to eat themselves. Economy was a shambles. I tried to help get the farm going, bought tractors, raised money for things. I'm 10,000 miles away. What do I know about farming? But I did the best I could. But just one problem after the other. The tractor I bought, the guy drove the tractor over the stuff that he'd already planted. Why did he do that? Destroyed that season's crop. Someone else was driving the tractor. Something broke down. It fell over on the side. 3 months later, tractor still laid over on its side, I heard. Finally, we got some tomatoes to grow, green tomatoes, and someone came and stole all the green tomatoes so nothing could grow to ripeness. I wanted to shout at these people from 10,000 miles away. I'm trying to help you have food to eat. Can we just have a righteousness revolution? Can you do what's right? And then the farmer that I sent over there, I didn't know him, someone else recommended him to me. We sent him over there and paid him a little salary to be our farmer in that place. And he fell in love with somebody and took the money for 6 weeks' wages for all the workers and spent it on a reception for his wedding. Made a baby. Left 2 families behind here in America. Not good. If people could just do what's right. What if there were no shootings in schools? Drug companies didn't drive up the prices crazy on people who need those medicines. What if there were no banks that cheated people, put bonds out on worthless properties that people cannot pay? No one had to foreclose and lose their house. People I've loved have lost their house. What if all the countries in the world did the right things? What if North Korea wasn't doing any more nuclear tests? And people say, okay, we're done with that. What if? What if there were no more fights over tariffs? No more wars in Africa. No more Israel and Palestine shooting rockets at each other. No more armies or police or prisons. We could use all that money for more freeways and better medicines and better schools for kids. What if the Lakers and Clippers in our city in Los Angeles did everything right and were just the best because they did things right? Righteousness revolution. What if in your family everyone did everything that was right? Nobody did anything wrong. Everybody did their chores. Everybody did their part. Everyone did all their homework at the right time. Everyone did all the finances right, and everyone just got along. Righteousness revolution. What would that be like? No one ever raised their voice. What about in the church? There would be no more politics, no more scandals, no more people judging, no more food police, music police, clothes police, or any other kind of police. Just love and peace and harmony all the time. I went to Chicago, good friend of mine. I'm not trying to out him, this is long ago. And in the other conference, which was also in Chicago, they had a huge church downtown Chicago. They've had a hard time funding their high school, Adventist Academy. So the president, this good friend of mine, he, without telling anybody, didn't send any tithe up for a long time, mortgaged the biggest church without telling them about it for $750,000. And put all that money into buying a shopping center where he thought that if he could get this shopping center going and get it all with enough renters in there, there would be a certain amount of money that would come, and that money would pay for the academy, and he could pay back the mortgage, and it would all be good. Except it never worked. And there was a terrible meeting where he had to be let go from his conference president position. We'd done TV shows together. He's my friend. Talented, smart, just cared, trying to help, but didn't do things right. The next president had to really work hard to pay all that off. Too bad. Too bad. If it could just be where everyone does everything right, nobody would criticize anybody, always be patient, always be kind, always get along, 1 Corinthians 13, love keeps no record of wrongs. Love is never easily offended. Love is always kind. Love is never rude. Could it just be like that? A righteousness revolution. Biggest challenge I have in writing this sermon was, how can I make you and everyone else I preached it to feel good about this word righteous? Usually we use it negative. He thinks he's so righteous. They think they're so great, so righteous. To be righteous is not something people want to be. No, I'm not that pure. Not righteous. I played golf in a golf tournament for our school down in Orange County here a few weeks ago. I've become a very crazy, busy person. I used to be a good golf player, but I've lost it over the last few years. I'm going to go to Hawaii. Maybe I can recover some of it. And I couldn't play good. I'd been to Vietnam. I'd been traveling. I had no days to practice. And I went out there to play in this tournament. And I was terrible. I hit people's houses. I hit it in the fields and parks and waters. I was terrible. I wanted to quit and go home. So bad. It was more fun when I was good. When I knew I could hit it straight. When I knew I was going to shoot 78, 79, 80, 81. I was going to be one of the best players all the time. I have golf trophies in my shelf. It was more fun when you do things righteous. I played a duet with a friend of mine for a Filipino program here a week ago. I'd been in Thailand all week. I had not practiced. I did not have a lip. I couldn't do very good. He didn't do good either. We were terrible. It was terrible. It was an embarrassment. So we finally said, we'll do it again. We'll do a different song, easier song. We got 2 more trumpet players to play with us, and we played last Saturday night, my retirement night. We did okay, not too bad. But it's more fun when you play right. And you play in tune and you do it the way the song is supposed to be. When you sing in a choir and you do it right. When you play a game and you do it right. When you do business and you do it right. It's more fun when it's righteous. And you do it good. I took my wife water skiing one time and she never got over the submarining stage. So that's not water skiing, honey. You got to get up on top. Let it pull you up. Then you're water skiing and you're on top of the water. Just plowing. It's horrible. It's not righteous. More fun when you're doing it right. Our family went surfing. I didn't know how to surf. They had a little session on the beach before they got into the water, but I had to do something at the church. I couldn't get there when they had their little class. So I took my board out into the water, tried to look around, see what people were doing, tried to get on the board and try to paddle. Could feel the wave lift you, tried to get up on my knees, get up on my feet. I fell off 40 times in a row. Cold water, other people getting a little, I got nothing. I said, I'm a good athlete. How hard can this be? I got home, I opened up a YouTube video. One small detail, as soon as you get up, you're standing sideways on the board. I said, could someone have told me that? I'm standing here tipping off. No one told me. Didn't know how to do it right. Surfing is more fun when you do it right. We went ziplining in the Philippines. Highest zip line in the world. You come hurtling into this house at the end. Usually they have some sort of braking mechanism that brings you to a stop. There was no braking. We came hauling into that house. And there's the back of the house right there. And there's 2 guys that jerk the rope and bring you to a halt. Guys that you don't know, and they don't know you. But you're thankful when 2 guys do it right. Your life is on the line. You have surgery, what do you want? A doctor who doesn't hit and miss. He gets it right every single time. You fly in an airplane, we're flying tomorrow morning. You want a pilot who does it right. Doctor, dentist who does it right. We want righteous people. There is a right way and a wrong way to do things. There was a lady who was not a jet pilot. She was flying in an air show, flying right over the deck, right on the runway. The crowd is cheering. She pulled back on the stick. Thought she would fly up into the sky. No, she went into the cement. Forgot she was upside down at the time. It's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. There's a famous story about the lady who bought a $22,000 Bayliner ski boat, took it up to a lake here in Central California, put the boat into the water, parked her car, got in the boat, began to drive. Nothing, couldn't go. What, 22,000? It's got to have more power than this. Nothing. Took over to the little marina. Can you check this out? Brand new boat. Got no power. They checked all the systems. Guy dove underneath the sea, came up laughing, said, oh, what's wrong? Never took the boat off the trailer. There's a right way to do it, there's a wrong way to do it. There's a righteous way to be, God knows. Bob Bucher talks about, came over from whatever country he came from in Europe. One Christmas, someone gave him a football, deflated. He didn't know what to do with it, never seen a football game. He and his brothers were out there throwing this little thing around. A neighbor had to come out and say, let's pump a little air. Works better with air, you can throw it. I had a cousin, we were in college together, drove down to go to a big event in San Francisco. Had a flat tire at 5 o'clock on the Golden Gate Bridge. Didn't want the helicopter news reporter to say, there's an idiot down there changing their tire in the middle of the rush hour. So they drove on the tire and then on the rims to get off the freeway. Wrecked the tire and the rims. There's a right way. Tires were not made. You can do it. Not made. There's a right way, a righteous way to do life. And we would just say God is righteous. God knows how to do it right. And the Bible all the way through says God has a right to tell us what to do because He Himself is righteous. Psalm 11, verse 7. For our Lord is righteous, and He loves righteousness wherever it appears. Jeremiah 12, you are always righteous, O Lord. And one of my favorite verses, Daniel 9:14. The Lord is righteous in all that He does. All that He does. There's never a time that we would do over it again. Out of all the options, God chooses exactly the right option every single time because He's righteous. If it was baseball, He would never strike out. If it was basketball, He would never miss. He is always righteous. People tell me if I was God, I would do this. If I had the power, I would step in here. I would do this. I would do that. All I know is that when we see the end from the beginning someday, and we can play the video back and we can read the record, Bible says we will eventually agree and say with Daniel, the Lord is righteous in all. We would be no do-over. He's never made a mistake, not even by 1/10%. He has been exactly righteous because He is righteous. It's who He is. And the Bible says at the end of the millennium, we're all going to say, Revelation 15:3-4, just and true are your ways. Romans 3:25-26, God is both just and the justifier. He does it right. He justifies us all, saves us all, and He does it exactly right. It's righteous. Just and righteous are the same word. Whatever He does is right. You remember the old story about the lighthouse? You think it's two ships coming at each other. One ship thinks he's bigger. He says, you move 10 degrees to your left because I'm coming. He said, now you move 10 degrees to the left. The guy says, you move. I am Sergeant so-and-so. The next guy says, no, you move. I am whatever his name was, Lieutenant something. And next guy says, no, you move. I am a battleship. You move. The next message comes back, you move. I'm a lighthouse. And we believe that God is that lighthouse. He is the fixed point. He is the one righteous source in the universe. Always does it right. And you will live your life best if you take your reference point from God, who is always righteous. Well, deal with a little modern culture here. For thousands of years, everyone got their morality by looking up to God. God was the creator. He was the one who did the Bible. He was everything. They had no other reference point. Everything was God. Do what God tells you to do. God makes the commandments. God gives the right. God gives the prophets messages. Everything was from God. Then we have a reaction, what is called modernity. Modernity says, no, you don't look to God, you look to science. Science is how you really know. God, how do you know? You don't see a voice. You can't authenticate and verify God. Science, you can observe and you can measure and you can really have a pretty confident knowledge that this is truth and this is right. So don't look up at God anymore. Look at science. Then we had another reaction called postmodernism. And it begins to deconstruct and not even really believe always in the science. In fact, you can't ever really know for sure what's truth. It's all shaped by the one who is watching. And your eyes and your life, you shape whatever it is you're experiencing. You only know how you see it and you perceive it. But you do not know if what you see is really connected to true truth. And so all we have are your opinions and your stories and your perception. Postmodernism. No one has a right to say this is truth. No fixed points, no lighthouse. You don't look up to God, you just look inside yourself. Whatever you want. Rousseau said, don't need to look up to God. Look inside yourself. Not God, not science, inside yourself. Now there's even postmodern modernity, but just really whatever feels good to you. You're the God of your own life. The old story that I've used for a long time is a man who had a clock store. He had a lot of clocks all in his window and all through his store. Every afternoon, a guy would come and got out in front, and he would set his watch by the clock. After 7 or 8 months, he came out, and he said, who are you that you're coming every day to see my clock and set your time? He said, I work at the factory in town. And I am the one who's over all the whistles, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, these whistles. And I'm going to get the time right, so every afternoon I come here and get the time right. And then I go back and I set the whistles. The guy began to laugh. You can't do that. We set our clocks by your whistles. Everybody's setting their whistles by everybody else. No fixed point. No, there has to be a fixed point where you get your time from a fixed point. And God is that fixed point. We still believe in looking up to God. Well, when I first preached this was Mother's Day, I looked at 3 women. I heard a sermon by Bill Hybels. He looked at 3 women. One was Vashti in the book of Esther. She's the queen. The king's having a drunken party. He calls for Vashti to come and show her beauty to the group. She says, I will not. I refuse to be used. I will not be defined by you. I will not be defined by other people looking at me. I will not let anyone else stereotype me from the outside. So she stands for anybody who refuses to let the world determine their culture or their beliefs. 1 John chapter 2, 15, love not the world. Romans 12, 2, don't be conformed to the world. Don't let the world decide who you are. Heard a sermon here a few months ago in the Philippines, 7,000 young people, and he was making fun of these jeans with all the rips. And every picture he showed, the rip was bigger, and pretty soon there wasn't much jean left. Everyone's laughing, and he said, what's going on in our world? And he pled with these kids. Don't let your life be completely controlled by the culture around you. You decide by truth and by looking up to God, not to the culture. Vashti stands for not giving in to the culture. Zeresh. Zeresh is the wife of Haman. Haman is number 2 in the country, maybe like prime minister. Everyone bows to him except the Jew, Mordecai, at the front door. Mordecai refuses to bow down to another man. Haman comes home. He's so mad, he says to his wife and all their friends, I can't stand it. He has all this wonderful, his houses and power and fame, but he says, none of this gives me any satisfaction as long as I have that Jew Mordecai at the king's gate. What can he do? And Zeresh has a chance. to calm her husband down and said, just chill down, my husband. He's just a doorman. Everybody else is bowing down to you. Give a little perspective here. Have a little reframing. This is not the end of the world for you. She has a chance to speak voice of reason and character and truth to her husband. What does she do? No, she pours gas on the flame. And she says, go to the king and get him to make a law that he can kill all the Jews. Too bad. Have a gallows built that says 75 feet high and ask the king to hang Mordecai on it. She does not balance him out. She doesn't calm him down. She doesn't bring character and truth and wisdom to him. Cool down. Let's take it easy. You have all these friends. You have me. You have all this money. You don't need this. When she could take a stand for God. Esther is the young Jewish queen. She hears that Mordecai is wearing sackcloth and ashes, and she hears, what's going on? He says, haven't you heard about the law? Go in before the king and fight for your people. She says, I can't go in. If he hasn't asked for me, I can't go in. I'll die. No, go on in before the king. God has placed you there for such a time as this. If you don't do it, God will use someone else, but God put you there for this. Go in. Okay, I'll go in. She goes in, and the king accepts her. She fights for her people and saves her people. She takes a stand for God. She's righteous. And God is looking for people to stand for him, who want to have a righteousness revolution, who are willing to say, I will take a stand. The other day, I walked into my church Saturday night, and here was a young man who was trying to sell water filters to my people in the church on Sabbath afternoon. We thought he was going to give a worship talk. And I did decide, am I take a stand or what am I going to do? And I took a stand. And I stood up and said, we would never allow someone to now sell this thing on Sabbath in our church on Sabbath. People said, thank you for taking a stand. We need a righteousness revolution. Are you one that will help take a stand for God? Well, you know, Jesus died for us, so we're covered by his righteousness. None of us are righteous by ourselves. But we have a righteous God, and he calls for his people to take a stand. God, who does everything right, is calling for a group of us to now stand for him. Take a stand where you are in your work, in your school, in your business, in your world. Take a stand to do what is right for God. And we'll have a righteousness revolution in the world. This is God Talk. Come back next week. God bless you all.